Sehr geehrter Herr Regierender Bürgermeister, lieber Kai Wegner, sehr geehrte Gäste, a very warm welcome to all of you. Mein Name ist Evelyn Zupke.
My name is Evelyn Zupke. I was brought up in the GDR. I was brought up in a dictatorship, and today I'm the Commissioner of the German Parliament for those people who suffered political persecution in the GDR and were victims of dictatorship. I am commissioned to help those people who were severely punished for their struggle for freedom and self-determination, political disadvantages when it came to training, professional development, career, residence, forceful resettlement, coercion, forceful adoption, intimidation at all levels. All of this was done in order to make people do as we're supposed to be, or to enforce the will of the state. And the people who suffer that still feel what it meant. What does freedom mean to us? That's a question I ask myself every day in my work. What does freedom mean? A few kilometers away from where we are meeting today, there was the Berlin Wall, with democracy on one side of it and a dictatorship on the other. The Berlin Wall, the inter-German border, was more than something which ruptured the capital and the country. It had become the embodiment of a repressive state cast in cement and barbed wire. Our freedom is in your hands. What does freedom mean for us? Jutta Gallas was a mother of 2 young daughters. She wanted freedom for herself and for her children. And in the summer of 1982, therefore, she turned to one of the organizations helping people escape. And she, her daughters, and her partner were supposed to leave the GDR through Romania and what was then Yugoslavia and finally come to Germany. But their planned escape failed. In Bucharest, the secret police arrested them. So their path did not lead to freedom. For the woman, it led to the prisons of a dictatorship. For her daughter, they were sent to what is called a Borstel, a home for children with disadvantages. When finally the West bought her free as a prisoner, free prisoner program against money, she had a long wait of fighting for her children for many, many years. Hunger strikes, petitions, vigils, all this was employed by her to draw attention to her situation. Time and again, whatever the weather, snow, ice, wind, she was at Checkpoint Charlie, the best known of the border crossings between East and West Berlin, with a hand-painted placard to draw attention to her fate and that of her family. Her pictures went around the world as the woman of Checkpoint Charlie. And for the first time in 1988, after 6 torturous years with a lot of international pressure, her children were allowed to leave the GDR. And she could finally hug her children. So what does freedom mean for us in Germany? It's a given that we all live in peace and freedom. And I would say sometimes for many people, it's too much of a given. And I'm deeply worried when there are surveys showing that here in Germany, more and more people have the impression that they have no political influence, that in their view, this is only a sham democracy, when in reality, they think citizens have no say. Whether it's a democracy or a dictatorship, does it really matter? All over the world, there are people fighting for democracy, for freedom, risking their lives in so doing. Democracy and freedom seem like something which is so obviously theirs that they think they can do without. So it is up to us to tell our society that, particularly with a view to our own history and with a view to a world where we see an increasing weight given to authoritarianism. I'm grateful that this Freedom Week is in Berlin, and I'm also grateful that in the next few days we're going to delve into the details of the values of peace and freedom. The fact that freedom and democracy are not to be taken as a matter of course, that we support those people who today are fighting for freedom and democracy. And I hope that in our society we are aware of the great value that a free democracy and human rights have. Thank you.
Lieber stehen? Okay, gerne. Ja. Ja, Frau Zupke, ganz herzlichen Dank für Ihre eindringlichen Worte. Wenn wir etwas weiter weg von hier schauen in den Deutschen Bundestag.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Zupke. When we look at the Bundestag, there will be a discussion about the mandatory service in the armed forces, and there are very diverse views about this in our opinion available. Some people are saying, well, I would rather prefer to live in freedom rather than serve as a soldier. How high is the price of freedom?
Freiheit kostet etwas, wenn sie nicht da ist.
If there is no freedom, of course, you have to pay a high price, and defending freedom, of course, is also rather painstaking in the literal sense and in the metaphoric sense. If you live from a lack of freedom, you always need people who are courageous enough to lead on the strike, who struggle, who are capable of shaking off the shackles in order to fight for freedom and democracy. And if we're in a situation as we are in freedom and democracy, because we can live in freedom and democracy, as the Lord Mayor already mentioned, and I said the same, and if our society is threatened, then it's our task as a society to defend our freedom and democracy as best we can. I think a debate about the military service is something that really needs to be discussed, but nobody really wants this to happen. But what does it mean if we say that we don't want to defend ourselves? We don't want to be able to defend our system. I think this is what we have to be able to do in our world, in our society full of freedom and democracy.
Sie haben selbst ja einen sehr hohen persönlichen Preis auch bezahlt.
You also had to pay a very high personal price for freedom and democracy. You were not allowed to attend educational institutions. With hindsight, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Ich glaube, nein.
I don't think so, to be honest. No, I don't think so. I think what we've done was the right thing to do with our co-freedom fighters. We were strongly committed in the GDR, of course, unofficially, because this was not allowed. But due to our activities, due to our thoughts, and due to all the events that we organized, we contributed to the fact that at the end of the 80s, we were able to bring the entire system to an ending. But this was built up on the decade-long struggle, the opposition that we waged. And in the 50s or the 60s, in the time of the Soviet occupation, people really endangered their whole lives. So this was a very long process. And at the end of the day, yes, there were enough people who joined forces and came together, and more joined us. And then we managed to bring about these fundamental changes. Of course, we couldn't anticipate that things would have had a good ending. Let's just think of the terrible days in October. We were really in a rather dangerous situation. Many of us had young children, and there were a lot of risks that we were subjected to, and we were intimidated and humiliated. Therefore, it's always difficult to answer that one. We were very much aware of the risks, but not of all of the risks, because this became only apparent once the GDR system has collapsed. The Stasi files, for example, they revealed a lot, but we definitely embarked on the right path. We did the right thing.
Das glaube ich auch, und es ist ja auch ein Verdienst.
I most certainly think so, and this is also accomplishment of the people in the GDR who stood up. And with the help of the peaceful revolution, they made German unification possible. Now, today here we have activists from different parts of the world suffering from autocracies. What is the message that you would like to convey to them? What are the lessons that you have learned? And what are the thoughts that you would like to pass on to freedom fighters? Well, be courageous, stand up. Of course, we are now in a very comfortable situation when saying that. But, since I was involved in the struggle, I think I may say so. Join forces with others, try to find allies, try to find out where changes can be brought about. Of course, this is very difficult because people who are still living in dictatorships or in the opposition abroad are subjected to tremendous pressure, and they also have to endure bodily harm. So I think we shouldn't be patronizing, but I hope that this will become possible for the people. Berlin is the city of freedom, you see, but it's also the city of hope. Here, too, we haven't had this hope all the time. Or maybe the hope, yes, but who really believed in making it possible to bring the Berlin Wall down? Nobody thought that this would have been possible. Nevertheless, it happened. So therefore, I hope that all the people who are here today coming from other countries of the globe, because there is an autocracy or dictatorship or who have to live elsewhere, can use Berlin as a role model. Don't give up hope. And do everything in your power that you are willing to do. Because one thing is most certain, if you fight for freedom and democracy in a dictatorship, this is always closely associated with very personal risks. So thanks very much.